A story of charge nurse bullying. Disclaimer. All names have been changed, timelines and room numbers have been altered. This past year, I have noticed some things about my weekend charge nurse. I have been in ICU for a year, and I've been a nurse for almost 6 years. I have always felt there was some friction between us, and also between her and certain co-workers. Several times she has made me feel like I could not ask her questions. She has publicly reprimanded me in front of co-workers, and done so to other nurses as well. And she has just made me and several others feel that she is unapproachable in general. Some examples include: a few months ago, I asked her for her expertise regarding the post-TPA worksheet, the green one, because the times on it said Q1H, Q2H, Q3H, etc., for hourly vitals, and it confused me a little because I felt like it should have just said time 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, etc. It kind of made it seem like it wanted vitals done every 1 hour, every 2 hour, etc. She loudly informed me that it was not confusing at all, and that if I didn't know what I was doing, I shouldn't ever be allowed to work in an ICU. I told her it was my first time receiving a post-TPA stroke patient, and that any time I do something for the first time, I always make sure I'm doing things correctly with someone more experienced than myself, and that is usually the charge nurse. She told me to leave it alone. I'm tired of you beating a dead horse. This past weekend, I called out Friday because my son was sick and no one could watch him. She told me on Saturday that I was on everyone's shit list because they were all tripled up. I was horrified, and I actually asked everyone at work that day who had been there the day before if they were upset with me and apologized, and they all reassured me that they were never upset. They don't know where she got that, and that they understood. A month or two ago, I was working with this charge nurse and 3 other nurses, and apparently we were getting a new patient that was to go to one of the nurses. Well, I was not informed of this new patient coming, and when they arrived, I was in an airborne room with the door shut, full duck mask on, and the curtain was pulled because I was doing a bed bath. When I opened the door and could see we had received a new patient, the charge nurse was yelling throughout the unit about being forced to work with incompetent nurses, and how she was going to tell our boss she can't be working with inexperienced nurses anymore that don't help. That same day, I had passed one other nurse's morning meds, answered many call lights, and replaced a lot of empty Diprivan bottles for the other nurses. The other nurses were appalled because they had all been helping everyone else out all day, and are always generally extremely helpful. Then there is the issue of Mark, who is a brand new nurse. I have not had a single day go by in the last 4 months without hearing her talk about him when he is not there, or berate him publicly when he is there. One time he had a patient on Nimbex and sedation, and he was having some kind of issue with something, and apparently the patient wasn't paralyzed enough and/or sedated enough. He asked her for help. She came out of the patient room after fixing the issue and told everyone at the desk that day what an idiot he was, that she has already gone to our boss and told her how he needs to be off the unit because he is dangerous and she is tired of working with him. She said, "I'm about to be out of here when I find my new job, and I don't care who you have in the unit then, but I don't want him taking care of my family members." She also said, he asked me if he had to change the weight on the other pumps since he changed it on the Nimbex pump, and I was like, "What do you think, mother?" She told everyone in earshot the same thing about him all day long and for weeks afterwards. He was mortified. She thinks he asks too many questions, and she always says at some part of a shift she works where isn't present that, if he had been here, it would have been so much worse. I am so embarrassed for him. It is too much, and it is very mean. I get what she is saying, but it has gone too far. I am so tired of hearing about him from her. She is extremely territorial. One example: the family respite door to the unit she leaves unlocked every weekend. When I was trained, I was told we keep it on lock. One weekend, I saw it was on unlock, and I flipped it back to lock. I didn't think it was a big deal, but it was. She told me that when she is charged, everyone knows not to mess with that lock, that it is her thing. I never touched it again, so on the weekends it's unlocked, and sometimes family members have figured it out and come and go as they please, in whatever numbers they please, and I don't think it is safe. I brought this up to her, and her response was dismissive. I said that I was here the night of the shooting on 3rd, and I would feel better if it was locked, and she told me, "Well, if someone wants to bring a gun in her and shoot someone, we can't stop them just by locking the door." I give up. This past weekend, me and another nurse, Carlos, were asked by a nurse named Chandra to look at her patient who she felt was having a seizure in 209. We did look at him, and we were all in agreement he was having a seizure. I asked her if he had Ativan. She informed me he did not, because he had an allergy to it. Carlos asked about Keppra, and she asked me if I would Tiger text the doctor. I texted him to let him know the patient was seizing and had no meds. I let the charge know what was going on, and that I texted the doctor. She yelled at me that doing that was her job, not mine, and that I should have let the charge nurse handle it. Which she is right. However, Chandra didn't feel comfortable talking to her about it because of the way she had been acting all day. She had already been short with most of us, and honestly, this has been going on for some time, and we all know not to bother her with questions anymore. Anyway, later on, she was apparently upset with me for not getting a call light when she was standing right there while I responded to one of my vents alarming. Way later on, her and the doctor got into a verbal argument about him not responding to our texts, calls for meds, and not ordering things like Keppra, a neuroconsult, etc., and he was upset the patient hadn't been dialyzed. We all scattered like roaches and made ourselves scarce for the rest of the day. All of this is very upsetting to me because, 1, I feel like I can't ask for help, ask questions to the most knowledgeable nurse we have on hand, and 2, I'm afraid I will experience something I've never had and be afraid to get her help, which could end up causing patient harm. I'm also concerned that this is just straight-up nurse bullying, workplace violence in some cases. I am afraid I have also become a target. Yesterday, I noticed I would ask her for her help, and she would completely ignore me. Some people have told me not to take it personally, and I actually don't. Some have said, "Don't worry, she's leaving soon," and so I haven't wanted to bother my boss with this information, but I've run out of patience. It's more sad to me than anything, because I feel like she's a wealth of knowledge, and I respect her so much clinically, but she's not willing to help. I am telling my boss because she has no respect for me at all, so nothing I say to her will matter. Thanks for listening.
The Bully's Playbook, Tactics of Control and Demoralization. First, there was public reprimand and humiliation. Imagine asking for clarification on a post-TPA worksheet, a critical document for stroke patients, and being loudly told you shouldn't ever be allowed to work in an ICU if you didn't understand it, or being informed falsely that you were on everyone's shit list for calling out sick with a child. This isn't constructive feedback, it's a power play designed to embarrass, to instill fear, and to silence questions. Then came dismissiveness and invalidation. When Alex tried to express a legitimate safety concern about an unlocked family respite door, a huge security risk, especially after a shooting incident on another floor, her concerns were casually brushed aside with, "If someone wants to bring a gun in here and shoot someone, we can't stop them just by locking the door." This tactic minimizes valid worries, making you feel unheard and your professional judgment devalued. It shuts down critical safety discussions. Next, we saw isolation and exclusion. The charge nurse often ignored Alex's requests for help, creating an atmosphere where nurses simply knew not to bother her with questions anymore. In an ICU, where every second and every piece of information matters, this active prevention of collaboration and knowledge sharing isn't just frustrating, it's incredibly dangerous. What if a nurse is afraid to ask a crucial question that could save a life? This behavior was also marked by territorialism and a blatant misuse of authority. The unlocked door was her thing, not to be messed with when she was in charge. When Alex, trying to expedite care for a seizing patient, texted the doctor, the charge nurse yelled that it was her job, not mine. This isn't about upholding proper procedure. It's about arbitrary control, personal preference overriding policy, and creating an environment of fear where you're constantly worried about stepping on an invisible landmine. Perhaps one of the most heartbreaking tactics was gossip and slander. There was a brand new nurse, Mark, who became the charge nurse's constant target. Not a day went by without her publicly berating him or talking about him behind his back. She called him an idiot, told everyone he was dangerous, and claimed she'd told their boss he needed to be off the unit. She even mocked him with, "He asked me if he had to change the weight on the other pumps since he changed it on the Nimbex pump, and I was like, 'What do you think, mother?'" This isn't just mean. It's a calculated effort to destroy a colleague's reputation, undermine their confidence, and even imply they're a threat to patient safety, all while alienating them from their peers. And of course, gaslighting and blame shifting. Telling Alex she was on everyone's shit list, when her colleagues universally reassured her that wasn't true. This makes you question your own reality, isolating you further and chipping away at your self-belief. Finally, there was the constant unprofessional communication and intimidation. The yelling, the sarcasm, the aggressive demeanor that made everyone scatter like roaches. This creates a hostile, draining work environment where nurses are focused more on avoiding conflict than on providing optimal care. The unacceptable cost: patient safety and professional well-being. The impact of these tactics is profound. Alex felt she couldn't ask questions or seek help from the most knowledgeable nurse on shift, leading to a terrifying realization. What if she encountered something new and was too afraid to ask, potentially harming a patient? This is the critical nexus where bullying transcends interpersonal conflict and becomes a serious patient safety issue. It's workplace violence that directly compromises the very reason nurses are there, to provide safe, effective care. Standing up, a call to action. Alex is taking the courageous step of speaking to her boss, and this is exactly what needs to happen. For anyone in a similar situation, remember these key steps. Document everything. Keep a detailed record of dates, times, specific incidents, direct quotes, witnesses, and how it impacted you. This objective record is your most powerful tool. Prioritize patient safety. Never compromise care. If the bullying prevents you from doing your job safely, use the chain of command, even if it means going over the bully's head. Prepare for your meeting. Be professional and calm. Focus on facts and impact, especially how the behavior affects patient safety and team morale. Your personal feelings are valid, but framing them within a professional context is crucial. Understand your policies. Know your workplace's policies on bullying and reporting. This empowers you. Seek support. Talk to trusted colleagues, friends, or family. Bullying is emotionally exhausting, and you don't have to carry that burden alone. Proactive strategies to counter bullying tactics. Public reprimands and humiliation. Bully's tactic: embarrassing you in front of others, undermining your competence. How cut it at the knee? Direct, calm confrontation, if safe. If you feel safe doing so, address it directly but briefly and professionally. Charge nurse. Name: I'd prefer to discuss this privately. My questions are about patient safety. This shifts the focus from your perceived incompetence to her inappropriate public behavior. Acknowledge and redirect. I understand your concern. Can we discuss the worksheet details when we have a moment away from the desk? This acknowledges her point, the worksheet, but sets a boundary on how it's discussed. Silence and documentation. Sometimes the most powerful immediate response is no visible response. Maintain a neutral expression, absorb the comment, and later document every detail. The goal is not to give the bully the satisfaction of a visible reaction, but to prepare for formal reporting. Seek immediate peer support, subtly. If a colleague is present, a quick glance or a shared understanding can validate your experience and subtly show the bully that others witness their behavior. Dismissiveness and invalidation. Bully's tactic: minimizing your concerns, especially safety-related ones, and shutting down discussion. How cut it at the knee? Reiterate and escalate, if safety is at risk. For safety concerns like the unlocked door, you must persist. Charge nurse. Name: I understand your perspective, but my concern about the unlocked door is a significant security risk, especially given past incidents. What is the hospital policy on this? If we can't resolve this now, I'll need to escalate this to manager house supervisor to ensure compliance. This clearly states the policy, your concern, and your intent to follow the chain of command. As a nurse, my priority is patient safety, and I feel strongly that this door being unlocked compromises that. Can we revisit this later with a fresh perspective? Bypass and document. If direct confrontation is immediately dismissed and safety is at stake, bypass the bully immediately and go to the next person in the chain of command, e.g., house supervisor, nurse manager. Document that you raised the concern with the charge nurse and her dismissive response, and then who you escalated it to and why. Isolation and exclusion. Bully's tactic: ignoring you, creating an atmosphere where you're afraid to ask for help, hindering teamwork. How cut it at the knee? Direct, task-oriented questions. Don't ask open-ended questions like, "Can you help me with this?" Instead, use specific closed questions that require a direct answer. Charge nurse. Name: I need your approval on this titration per protocol. Can you review this with me now? Or, charge nurse name, the protocol states X for this patient presentation. Can you confirm this approach? Leverage other resources and document. If the charge nurse ignores you, immediately turn to another senior nurse, the resident, or even the attending physician, if appropriate for the query. Document that you sought assistance from the charge nurse at time and were ignored, leading you to seek help elsewhere. Public witness to ignoring. If she ignores you publicly, calmly repeat your request once more, ensuring others are within earshot. If still ignored, move on to other resources, but the public ignoring is now witnessed. Territorialism and misuse of authority. Bully's tactic, arbitrary rules, my way or the highway mentality, claiming tasks are exclusively hers. How cut it at the knee. Refer to policy, calmly. Charge nurse, name, my understanding of hospital policy, X, is that the family door should remain locked for security. Can you clarify where that policy has changed? Or, I was taught that patient alerts are always communicated to the doctor and that sometimes involves texting. Is there a new unit procedure I'm unaware of? This frames it as a question about policy, not personal preference. My responsibility for the patient seizure scenario, as the primary nurse, I felt a responsibility to ensure the doctor was immediately informed given the patient's critical status and lack of meds on hand. This asserts your professional duty. Seek clarification from management. If the territorialism directly conflicts with established policy or patient safety, document the incident and discuss it with your manager. The charge nurse stated X regarding Y task door. This conflicts with policy Z. Can you clarify the correct procedure? Gossip and slander. Bully's tactic, spreading rumors, damaging reputations, publicly shaming. How cut it at the knee, refuse to engage. When she starts gossiping about Mark, change the subject immediately. Oh, speaking of patients, what's our plan for room 302? Or, I actually need to finish my charting. Do not contribute, agree, or even laugh nervously. Express discomfort, briefly. If you feel comfortable, a simple, I'm not comfortable talking about colleagues this way, can be powerful, though it might make you a target. Use your judgment. Support the target quietly. If you witness Mark being publicly shamed, a comforting word to him later, away from the bully, can go a long way. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Mark. You're doing great, and asking questions is how we learn. This subtly counters the bully's narrative. Documentation. Document every instance of her slandering colleagues, especially if it relates to patient safety or competence. Gaslighting and blame shifting. Bully's tactic, making you doubt your perceptions, shifting blame onto you. How cut it at the knee. Trust your reality. When she said you were on everyone's shit list, you did exactly the right thing by checking with your colleagues. Continue to seek objective validation when you doubt yourself. Don't accept the blame. Calmly state the facts. I called out because my son was sick and I had no childcare. My colleagues have confirmed they understood and were not upset. My understanding of the situation was X, based on facts and colleagues' input. I'm confident in my recall of events. Limit interaction. If possible, minimize interactions where she can twist your words or blame you. Communicate through written means, email, secure chat, when feasible for important information, creating a paper trail. Unprofessional communication, intimidation. Bully's tactic, yelling, sarcasm, aggressive demeanor. How cut it at the knee. Maintain composure and neutrality. Do not raise your voice or respond in kind. Keep your tone calm and even, your facial expression neutral. This denies them the emotional reaction they seek. I will not engage when you are yelling. If the yelling starts, calmly state, charge nurse a name, I'm happy to discuss this, but I won't engage when you are yelling. Then either walk away or disengage until she calms down. Document quotes. Write down specific aggressive quotes, like the motherfucker one, as accurately as possible. These direct quotes are damning evidence. Focus on the task, not the tone. If she's being sarcastic about a task, simply state, my focus is on completing task. Can you provide the necessary information? A crucial caveat. While these tactics can help you manage in the moment, they are often defensive strategies. They aim to make you a less desirable target or to protect you from immediate harm. They do not, however, solve the underlying issue of the bully's behavior. For systemic change and to truly cut at the knees of bullying, formal reporting to management and HR, backed by thorough documentation, remains the most effective and necessary step. Your decision to tell your boss is absolutely the right one, especially as a pre-med student who will soon be navigating these professional environments. Remember, you are not responsible for another person's disrespectful behavior. Your focus is on maintaining your professionalism, protecting your patients, and advocating for a safe work environment. Beyond the individual, a call for cultural change. This story is a stark reminder that while the skills and knowledge of a nurse are invaluable, a truly effective healthcare environment relies on respect, open communication, and psychological safety. When a charge nurse meant to be a leader and a resource becomes a source of fear and intimidation, the entire unit suffers, and ultimately, so do the patients. As aspiring medical professionals, or as anyone who values compassionate care, it's vital that we recognize these behaviors, understand their devastating impact, and commit to fostering cultures where asking questions is encouraged, help is readily given, and every team member feels safe and valued. Because only then can we truly provide the best care for those who need us most. Thank you for listening to the Healthcare Hero Podcast. Let's continue this conversation and work towards healthier, safer healthcare environments for everyone.